Mr. Ben Bradshaw.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I associate myself with the remarks of the Honourable Lady about marine safety organisations and fishermen's welfare organisations, particularly the Fishermen's Mission, in a year which thankfully has been one of the better ones when it's come to fatalities at sea. Madam Deputy Speaker, I don't know whether you've had the opportunity to watch the wonderful BBC series Blue Planet 2. But if you have, you have been inspired and moved by the wondrousness of our marine environment, but also by its vulnerability and fragility. And while environmental degradation on land is visible to us, we see the forests and species disappear, we see desertification, what's been happening in our oceans for far too long has remained invisible, apart to for a dedicated band of marine scientists and divers. But thanks to this fantastic programme, it's there now for all of us to see. Yes, of course I would wait.
Did the Honourable Gentleman share my concern as part of that programme, the amount of plastics that were being ingested by some of the marine life that then goes into our food chain?
Yes, indeed I was, and thankfully plastics are one of the more visible aspects of marine pollution because we see them washed up on our beaches, and the government is taking action on that, but there's a lot else that goes on which is still invisible. The other big difference, Madam Deputy Speaker, with land-based environmental degradation, of course, is that the sea is a place where the ancient human activity of hunting and gathering continues apace. Other human activity has its impacts, as we've just said, the use of plastics, but much is invisible. And of course, man-made climate change is leading to the warming of our oceans and the acidification, with yet unknown consequences. And it's not just marine life and fish that are affected as an edible resource, but the roles that the oceans themselves play in regulating our climate, our oxygen levels, and basically everything that makes human life on Earth possible. Now, for most of human history, the oceans and our fish have simply been plundered, and that didn't matter while there were relatively few human beings and fishing technology was relatively antiquated. But in the last 100 years or so, population growth and technological progress has completely changed that equation, with in cases devastating consequences. We all know the story of the near eradication of the bluefin tuna, of turtles, of North Sea cod, of the cod off the northeast coast of the United States, and in our own case, cod in the North Sea. But things have changed because of what was going on. In the early noughties, politicians began to take notice and take action. Action was taken, there was collective endeavour, and this has worked. In the case of North Sea cod, there's a fantastic recovery that has taken place thanks to the difficult measures and decisions I took as a fisheries minister, massively criticised by the fishing industry at the time. We've even had progress on the high seas, which is much, much more difficult because of the lack of international legal framework. But as anyone, I hope, can appreciate, Madam Deputy Speaker, managing our seas and fish stocks sustainably demands that countries work together. As has so often been said in these debates over the years, fish do not respect national borders, they swim about. And I have real concerns, in contrast to the Honourable Lady opposite, about the potential of Brexit and its potential to reverse the very welcome progress we have seen in the last 15 or 20 or so years. Now, let's be honest about this. The status quo is not a disaster. The Honourable Lady herself said that the recommendations are for increased catches at this year's council. I wonder why that is the case. My local ports, Brixham and Plymouth, have just recorded their best years in terms of the value of their catches, with species like cuttlefish doing incredibly well, being exported straight to European markets in Italy, France and Spain. Our very valuable crab and lobster, yes, of course I'll give way.
Is the Honourable Gentleman seriously saying that British fishermen want to stay in the common fisheries policy? Is that what he's saying?
Some do. They tend to be quiet because they get shouted down by honourable members like her. And if she's honest about it and speaks in honest conversations, sensible fishermen who care about long-term sustainability of their stocks do not all share the Honourable Lady's views. It would be inaccurate to suggest they do. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the point I was just making was that some of our most valuable catches, including in the southwest, where we have enjoyed a record year in terms of the value of our catch, at the moment, inside the common fisheries policy, are exported straight to the markets of the European Union, tariff-free. We also depend as a nation for 80% of what we consume on impulse because of our taste for cod and haddock. So what will happen, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the event of a bad deal or no deal when it comes to tariffs on these vital exports, but also tariffs on the vital imports on which our producing and processing sector is dependent on, about which my honourable friend, the member for Great Grimsby, will speak later. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Brexiteers have sold this idea that if we leave the European Union and unilaterally declare these marvellous limits, our fishers will suddenly get all these extra fish, will get massively increased quotas, our boats that currently fish in other people's waters will be able to carry on regardless, and our vital exports will be completely unaffected. Like so many of the promises made by these modern-day wreckers, this is a cruel deception on our fishers and on their communities. If you just look at the problems we've had this week with the Irish land border, Madam Deputy Speaker, imagine what will happen if the UK suddenly and unilaterally declared, as the Brexiteers are proposing, moving our international marine borders, in effect, unilaterally declaring fish wars on all of our neighbours, excluding them from the fishing grounds they have fished for hundreds of years, and stealing the quota they consider legally theirs. It's a recipe for mayhem, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is also a recipe for environmental disaster. Now, if we all know from fisheries management all over the world that if international and supranational cooperation and collaboration breaks down, it's the fish and the marine environment that pay the price. Now, the second cruel deception being played out by the government is that the government is likely to make fisheries a priority. Look at the value of our fishing industry to our economy compared with financial services, pharma and others. Is our government honestly going to pick a political fight for fisheries when all of these other sectors are worth more to our economy? It's a cruel deception. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, 2 further points. Please, Minister, make bass a recreational stock, as they've done in Ireland, with huge, huge success. And keep a place at that negotiating table. And when you go to Brussels later this month, stick with the science. Stick with the science, stick with the evidence, think about the fish and their future and a healthy future for our fishing industry.
Neil Parish.
Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you very much, Madam.